The warning signal. The Galactic Defense Network was silent, humming softly as thousands of data streams passed through its systems. Admiral Xera stood on the command deck of the Veltrix Prime, the largest warship in the fleet. His golden eyes scanned the holographic map in front of him, watching the movements of his patrol ships. Everything seemed normal, until the alarm blared. A deep, sharp voice echoed through the control room. Alert. Unidentified warship detected. Moving fast. Admiral Xera turned sharply toward his sensors officer. Who is it? Another pirate group. The officer's hands moved quickly over the console, scanning the incoming data. A tense silence filled the room before he spoke. No, sir. It's human. For a moment, the command deck fell silent. Humans, a species that most of the galaxy considered weak, primitive, and unworthy of concern. They had some powerful warships, but nothing compared to the Zerithian Empire's mighty fleet. Xera narrowed his eyes. Send identification request. Maybe they are lost. The officer tapped a few buttons. A message was sent. The response came almost instantly. You have been marked. Surrender is advised. Gasps filled the command deck. Xera's jaw clenched. Was this a joke? A bluff? They dare to threaten the Zerithian Empire? Tyra growled. His long fingers curled into a fist as he stared at the screen. The officer gulped. Sir, it's not just any human warship. It's U.S. Revenant. Xera froze. He had heard rumors about Revenant, a ship that was said to appear and disappear like a ghost, striking enemy fleets before they could react. Many claimed it was just human propaganda, a story to make them seem stronger than they really were. But now, it was real. The holographic screen zoomed in on the approaching ship. It was moving fast, too fast for a standard warship. Its energy readings were unstable, as if it was hiding its true power. Xera straightened his posture. How close are they? The officer's hands trembled slightly as he responded. Less than 500,000 kilometers and closing in fast. A shiver ran through the command deck. Humans should not be this bold. They should be afraid. So why was Revenant charging straight at them? Xera narrowed his golden eyes. Prepare our fleet. If they want to fight, we will show them the power of the Zerithian Empire. Outside, the void of space stretched endlessly, dotted with glowing stars. The Veltrix Prime and its fleet moved into formation, surrounding the path of U.S. Revenant. Xera smirked. They are walking into a trap. But then, something changed. The holographic map flickered as multiple officers panicked over their consoles. Sir, the human ship. It just changed course. Xera's eyes widened. Instead of slowing down, the Revenant accelerated, straight toward the heart of his fleet. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Xera felt something strange creeping into his mind. It was something he had never associated with humans before. Fear. The ghost ship. Admiral Xera clenched his jaw as the U.S. Revenant continued its reckless approach. It wasn't slowing down. It wasn't changing course. It was moving with absolute confidence, as if it already knew the outcome of this battle. Fire a warning shot, Xera ordered, his voice sharp. Show them they're making a mistake. A barrage of plasma rounds streaked through the darkness, glowing bright as they cut across the void toward the incoming human warship. But then, they vanished. Gasps filled the command deck. Sir, the rounds, they didn't hit anything. Xera's eyes widened. Impossible. The weapons had been locked on target. There was no way the ship could have evaded at that speed. Scan them again, he barked. The sensors officer frantically worked at his console, his breathing unsteady. Sir, our scanners. There's nothing there. Xera's hands tightened into fists. That was impossible. He could see the Revenant on the main screen, glowing under the distant starlight. Yet every system on his ship said it didn't exist. A ghost. A whisper of unease spread through the crew. The Zerithian Empire was the most powerful force in the sector. They had crushed rebellions, wiped out pirate fleets, and brought entire civilizations to their knees. But now, for the first time, they were staring at an enemy that wasn't playing by their rules. The comms crackled. A voice came through, calm, steady, and eerily confident. "Admiral Tyra." Zyra stiffened. The humans were hailing him. He exchanged a glance with his officers before nodding. "This is Admiral Xyra of the Zerithian Empire. Identify yourself." A small chuckle echoed through the speakers. "Oh, you already know who we are." The screen flickered. A shadowed figure appeared, a human. He was seated casually in his chair, relaxed, almost amused. His uniform bore the insignia of the Terran fleet, but his eyes, they were cold, calculating. Zara took a slow breath. "If you know who we are, then you know this is a battle you cannot win." The human smirked. "That's the thing, Admiral. You don't realize." The lights on the command deck flickered. A deep hum vibrated through the ship. Officers looked around, confused. "You've already lost." Suddenly, every alarm on the Veltrix Prime screamed to life. "Sir, hull breaches, multiple locations. Shields are down. Something is disrupting our defenses. Weapons offline. Systems failing one by one." Zyra's heart pounded. How? The Revenant hadn't even fired a shot. He turned back to the screen, but the human captain was gone. Instead, a single message blinked across the monitor. "You were never hunting us, Admiral. We were hunting you." Outside, in the vast, cold void of space, the U.S. Revenant vanished. And the Zerithian fleet. It was already crumbling. The silent hunt. Admiral Xyra stood frozen, his golden eyes locked onto the flickering screen. The U.S. Revenant was gone. Vanished. No warp trail. No cloaking signature. Just nothing. But the destruction had already begun. "Report. What is happening to my fleet?" Xyra demanded, slamming his fist onto the console. The crew scrambled to make sense of the chaos unfolding around them. "Sir, our battleships are shutting down one by one. Weapons, engines, even life support. Something is taking them apart from the inside." Zyra's blood ran cold. How was that possible? The Zerithian fleet was the most advanced in the sector. No enemy had ever disabled them without a fight. A deep, eerie silence filled the war room. No more incoming fire. No visible enemies. Just a fleet drifting helplessly in the dark. And then, the whispers started. Static crackled through the comms. Garbled voices. Fragments of desperate screams. "They're inside. Weapons don't work. Where did they come from?" Zyra's scales itched with unease. He turned to his security officer. "Get me a visual feed from our ships. I want eyes on the damage." The officer hesitated before patching into the surveillance network. The first screen flickered to life. The bridge of the ZS Warbringer, one of Zyra's destroyers, was empty. The lights were still on, control panels active, but the crew was gone. No bodies, no blood, just absence. Another feed. The ZI's Iron Claw. The corridors were eerily still. A helmet floated in zero gravity, its visor cracked. The security team had vanished. A third feed. The ZI's Bloodfang. This time, there was something. A shadow moved through the dimly lit corridor. Fast. Too fast to be Zerithian. Zyra's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. Pause it. The screen froze. The shadowy figure was humanoid. The air in the command center grew tense. Humans were on his ships. But how? The Revenant hadn't fired a single shot. No docking signals. No breach alerts. How had they gotten inside? Zyra's mind raced. The stories about the U.S. Revenant, they called it a ghost ship, appearing from nowhere and leaving only wreckage behind. But those were just myths, rumors spread by terrified survivors. Weren't they? The silence was broken by a chilling realization. The hunt wasn't over. It had just begun. Shadows in the void. Admiral Xera's claws drummed against his console. His fleet, the pride of the Zerithian Empire, was falling apart, ship by ship. Not from enemy fire, not from overwhelming force, but from something unseen, something inside. The feeds from his battleships remained frozen on the shadowy figures, human intruders, moving like ghosts through the corridors. Xera's mind reeled. How had they gotten in? His second in command, Commander Fresh, spoke in a hushed, shaken voice. "Sir, if they've breached our ships, why aren't they attacking outright?" Xera's slitted eyes narrowed. "Because they're not here to fight. They're here to dismantle us from the inside." A sharp alarm cut through his thoughts. New breach alert. They're on the Veltrix Prime. Xera's head snapped toward the security officer. "We are." The officer's scales paled. Everywhere. The lights flickered. The command deck's doors sealed shut with a deep hiss. Officers scrambled for weapons, but the realization hit them like a plasma blast. None of their guns worked. The ship wasn't theirs anymore. The overhead speakers crackled, and a calm, human voice cut through the panic. "Admiral Tyra." Xera clenched his jaw. It was him, the captain of the Revenant. "You don't understand what's happening yet, do you?" The voice continued, steady, unhurried. "You thought this was a battle, that we'd meet head-on like primitive warriors, but you're playing by the wrong rules." Xera growled. "Show yourself, coward." A chuckle. "Oh, Admiral, I already have." Xera's scales tingled with unease. He was right. The humans were already on board, already in control, and Xera hadn't even seen them arrive. The command deck's holomap glitched, flickering between static and a new display. The Veltrix Prime, once a solid shape on the tactical screen, now looked like a dissected carcass, sections shutting down one by one, power grids failing, communications scrambled. And then, the final horror. The ship's self-destruct sequence was armed. A collective gasp filled the deck. Xera's claws tightened. They didn't just want to take the ship. They were going to turn it into a weapon. The human captain's voice returned, a quiet smirk evident in his tone. "We won't fire a single shot, Admiral. We don't need to. The Zerithian fleet wouldn't be destroyed in battle. It would be erased by its own hands." The unseen enemy. Alarms blared. Emergency lights flashed red as the self-destruct countdown on the Veltrix Prime ticked down. 0437, 0436. Admiral Xera bared his fangs, his mind racing. How had it come to this? A fleet of 30 warships, the might of the Zerithian Empire, now silent, crippled, and turning against itself. And the enemy, nowhere to be seen. Override the sequence. Xera snapped. Shut it down now. The command team frantically worked at their consoles. Access denied. Every attempt to regain control failed. A new voice whispered through the ship's comms, not the human captain. This voice was cold, mechanical. Security clearance accepted. The bridge doors slammed open, and the lights flickered out completely. Xera's heart pounded. He heard the sound of boots, human boots, moving through the darkness. Silent, precise, too close. A hiss of pressurized air. Then, gunfire. Bright, staccato flashes illuminated the command deck. Shadows moved fast, too fast. Zerithian officers fell, one after another, without a sound. Xera grabbed a plasma blade from his belt. He wouldn't die cowering in the dark. A metallic clank. Something rolled across the floor, stopping near his feet. Xera's eyes widened. EMP-GRINADA. Boom. A pulse of energy erupted through the room. Consoles died instantly. The emergency lights flickered and failed. Every electronic system on the bridge went black. For a moment, just silence. Then the human voice returned. Calm. Controlled. "It's over, Admiral." Xera spun wildly, but a sharp, cold pressure pressed against his throat. A knife. The humans had taken the command deck, and he hadn't even seen it happen. The darkness lifted just enough for Xyra to make out the figure in front of him, tall, armored, and utterly fearless. Captain Elias Voss of the U.S. Revenant. Voss tilted his head, as if studying the defeated admiral. I expected more of a fight. Xyra's throat rumbled with a growl. You think this is over? Voss smirked. Oh, I know it is. Behind him, holoscreens flickered back to life, this time displaying something far worse than a self-destruct sequence. A virus. It had already spread through the fleet's navigation, weapons, communications, turning every warship into a floating tomb. Voss leaned in, his voice quiet. Deadly. Your empire wanted war. We gave you extinction. The fall of giants. The bridge of the Veltrix Prime was silent. Admiral Xyra's mind raced, his claws tightening into his palms. How had the mighty Xerithian fleet crumbled without a single direct battle? The humans had rewritten the rules of war. Captain Elias Voss stood before him, calm and unwavering, his knife still pressed against Xyra's throat. His soldiers, silent phantoms in black armor, stood watch, their weapons trained on the few remaining Xerithian officers. But Xyra's eyes weren't on them. They were on the screens. The virus had spread. Ship after ship, once the proud sentinels of the Empire, now drifted lifeless in the void. Weapons disabled, shields down, communications jammed. They weren't just beaten. They were caged. A notification pulsed across the main display. Incoming transmission from the human high command. Voss's lips curled into a smirk. Time for your empire to listen. He tapped his wristpad, opening the channel. A cold, authoritative voice filled the bridge. Admiral Xyra of the Xerithian Empire, this is Fleet Marshal Helena Carter of the United Terran Federation. Your fleet is finished. Your empire has a choice. Surrender now, or be erased from the stars. Xyra's vision blurred with rage. His fleet had outnumbered them. His ships were stronger, faster, more advanced. They had spent decades preparing to crush humanity. Yet here he stood, a prisoner in his own warship. He wanted to fight, to sink his fangs into this human and tear his throat out. But Voss simply watched him, unbothered, amused, because he already knew. Xyra had no moves left. His claws slowly uncurled, his shoulders slumped, his tail flicked once, a silent command to his officers. Stand down. The weight of the moment crashed over him. The Xerithian Empire would remember this day, not as a battle lost, but as the day they were outplayed before the fight even began. Voss stepped back, flipping his knife in one hand. Smart choice. Xyra bared his teeth. This war isn't over, human. Voss chuckled. It is for you. The human turned to his soldiers, giving a single order. Secure the fleet. We're taking them home. The price of defeat. The once mighty Xerithian fleet drifted silent and lifeless above the shattered remains of Outpost Vikar, a testament to human ingenuity, a graveyard of arrogance. Admiral Xyra sat in his command chair, his claws tapping rhythmically against the cold metal. Around him, his officers were disarmed, restrained, their eyes burning with shame and disbelief. On the main view screen, Fleet Marshal Helena Carter appeared, calm, commanding, unshaken. Admiral Xyra, she began, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 victories. Your fleet is in our hands. Your empire's greatest warships are now floating relics, and your people, she paused, are watching. Xyra's head snapped up. Watching. Then the screen changed. Live footage from Xerithian homeworlds, broadcasting the fall of their fleet. The Xerithian public was seeing everything. Xyra's stomach twisted. For centuries, the Xerithian Empire had thrived on the illusion of dominance. They had told their people that humans were weak, unworthy of the stars. Now they watched as humans dismantled their invincible warships, piece by piece. Watched as soldiers, who once stood unchallenged, knelt in defeat, watched as the Empire's lies unraveled in real time. Voss, standing beside Xyra, let out a low chuckle. Your people will remember this day forever. Xyra's claws dug into his chair. Rage, disbelief, utter humiliation, and yet, beneath it all, respect. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had ended a war before it even began. Fleet Marshal Carter's voice cut through the silence. We have no interest in ruling you, Admiral. Xyra's eyes narrowed, but Carter continued, if your empire ever moves against humanity again, there won't be a surrender next time. The screen flickered, showing a single image. A massive, unidentified human warship. A ship unlike anything in the Zerithian database. Black, silent, bristling with unknown weaponry. A ghost. Xyra felt a chill creep up his spine. A warning. A promise. Humanity had shown mercy today. But next time, they would bring obliteration. Xyra exhaled sharply, his pride screaming at him to fight, to resist. But he had seen enough. The Empire had already lost. Slowly, painfully, he lowered his head. We accept your terms. A final transmission was sent across the galaxy. The war was over, and humanity had won.